midlife glow up. It's like a
glow up. Yeah.
It's a glow
That's
up.
too trendy for me. I don't like that.
Sorry, I know.
And like, I don't like any of them though. It's not just that one.
I puked a little in my mouth when I said it. I'm not going to lie. Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to She Did What?
She blew it up.
Yep. Today we're talking about our follow-up to Joe Piazza.
You're so Southern sometimes.
I know.
It's so cute.
Every time. Episode.
My friend texted me yesterday. She said, I was going to voice memo you, but I listened back to it and I sounded like biscuits and gravy.
This is why I don't voice memo. I've always hated the sound of my own voice.
She said. She said, I sounded like biscuits and gravy. I was like, that is so funny. Sorry. Joe Piazza. We are following up on her tremendous episode about blowing up your life and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So jump in, Brandy. The water's fine.
Yeah. So I loved that episode. And in the episode, she is having a conversation with a friend and another author, Elle Cosimano. And Elle's mom said to her at one point, if you don't make a change, you're going to have a midlife crisis. And I was so jealous that someone called that out to her.
I was too. I'm like, where's my savior telling me I'm going to have a midlife? Everyone else is just watching me melt.
Yeah. And so that was incredible. Yeah. We don't all get that.
No, that's a very special
foresight.
That's a very special guardian angel kind of.
And plus it was special, I guess, that she listened to her mom, because do we ever? And and she thought about it, and she took a little break to go try something different. And it worked out really well for her.
Yeah, it did. And so for those of you who haven't listened to the episode, please hit pause here, go back, listen to our last week's episode with Joe Piazza and Elle Cosimano, because it is incredible conversation for any woman of any age. And it's kind of a coming of age story for a woman in her 40s, which I love.
I can't remember. Was she in her 40s when this happened? I can't remember if we know her age.
Well, okay, maybe she's not in her 40s yet, but she has two children.
It was 30s or 40s.
Are not babies, because the mom and dad are taking them to the beach. Long story short, Elle ends up, a recap for those of you, Elle ends up going to Mexico and staying in her parents' they bought a property there, retired there. Her parents take the kids to the beach every day. She takes off the summer, and she's a very successful realtor at this time. I believe, right? Realtor?
Yes. And she had been. That's why I'm pretty sure she's in her late 30s or early 40s.
And she goes to Mexico to write, and she essentially takes a sabbatical, and her parents take care of her children, and she is sort of forced to sit down in the attic of this home and just write every day. And mom reads the pages every night, which I thought was also beautiful.
Yeah,
I was like, this is such what a healthy mother-daughter.
Her mom was very supportive, but not in a pushy way.
No, it was like helping her create a guided expectation for the sabbatical.
Helping her make a change.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. How many people in your life help you make a change? Some people say they're on board with you changing something.
What a great point.
But do they really support?
People don't like change.
No.
So as much as they want to see it for you, well, then how does that affect me?
And I feel like a lot of times, like if you say, I'm going to start working out, and you're someone that doesn't work out, like some friends or family members might jab at you a little for that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how's the working out going?
Right. Or if you want to make a change, let's say I want to do Whole30, and your spouse is like, wait, but I love carbs and unhealthy food. It's like that. Well, that affects me. So
yeah,
it can be very scary to make change, and it can be scary for other people too, because they might be affected by the changes you make.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, probably now that I'm thinking of it, even more often than not, people might, say they're outwardly supportive, but you're right, take a job or,
Yeah.
maybe unintentionally sabotage the change that could be happening.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from their own issues, and maybe they want to make that change, but they're not brave enough to say so and to do so yet. And so they're a little, they're feeling that out a little.
I definitely, I feel that deeply, and I'm not going to talk about why because I've already gotten in trouble for it. But
so go Elle's mom.
Go Elle's mom.
Will you adopt us?
Yes.
Will you be our midlife crisis navigators?
And there are moments of this episode where, as I mentioned in the intro, that I laughed so hard, I was crying. I mean, it's just such a touching episode as a woman. So
yes,
go give it a listen. Yes.
You want me to go?
You have to guide because I have no notes on the front.
We had already been playing around with doing an episode of our own about the midlife crisis.
Which we hate that term.
I know.
It's such a yucky term.
Do you want to try to rename it right now or later?
Yeah, let's try and rename it.
Okay. So I think it's very different these days because it's no longer like losing your marbles and buying a sports car. That is not a midlife crisis. That is just a bad decision.
Poor financial planning.
But that's like how midlife crises were portrayed to us when we were younger.
No, and it was a very male thing too. Like women did not have midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Men had midlife
They
crisis.
got the girlfriend and
they
the sports car.
They got a girlfriend. They got a sports car. They couldn't handle the family anymore. They couldn't handle the pressure of it all. And that's really how it was billed to 80s babies.
Yeah.
As it's just a man having his midlife crisis.
But I feel like now it's being rebranded and it's more like this is your opportunity to change your life and make it what you want it to be. You've been doing this for 20 years. You don't like it. So let's do something different. Like it's completely different now, I feel like. And so should we call it
midlife glow up? It's like a
glow up. Yeah.
It's a glow
up.
up.
That's too trendy for me. I don't like that.
Sorry. I know.
And I don't like any of them though. It's not just that one.
I puked a little in my mouth when I said it. I'm not going to lie.
Like midlife reclaiming, but that's not snazzy enough.
I also hate midlife.
Midlife meaning. I saw something on Instagram and they called it the feral 40s.
That's good.
I was kind of on board with feral.
I like the feral 40s.
I like feral anything.
Well, and also
feral is like unhinged, but not insane.
Yeah.
It's just like feral. Just like
it's also
natural.
Natural. I think it's going back to the roots, right? Like we talk about this all the time, ad nauseum. What brings us joy? What brings us pleasure? What brings us, because we have been in this power structure of do more, be more, push yourself. I literally yesterday saw this audio on Instagram and it's like kind of the trend of social media is moving back into that kind of hustle society. And it's like, that's why these trends don't work fundamentally, because no one fits into a trend or a box that way or a pigeonhole that way. I digress. You can just be feral and natural and be you. Like feral, because like a feral cat's very different than a feral dog's very different than a feral bear, right?
The feral cat needs no one's approval.
It's the feral cat 40s. I mean, but it's very much, like a primitive kind of, I'm going back to what I need after a long time of maybe being overscheduled, overstructured, and wearing myself way too thin.
Yeah. And the reason I felt like this was so important to just get out there and start talking about is we're in our 40s now. And so most of our friends are, I run into people I haven't seen in 5 years. They're like, oh man, I have blown up my life. I quit my job. We moved, we're doing this. We just couldn't take it anymore. Like I was so tired of my job. They weren't listening to me. I needed a change. And none of it is like, I feel like a midlife crisis used to be a very negative situation. And now I feel like there's a lot of the like shame is come off of it. Do you ever feel it had shame before?
Well, yeah, because when Bob rode off into the sunset with Tilly, his, 20-year-old secretary in his new Ferrari, that's shameful.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the shame is coming off because you're telling me this and I'm like, girl, I just did the same thing a year ago.
Because we're shedding expectations that were never really there.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when you make a big change, people think you failed and that's why you changed. And I think we're starting to rewrite that script.
Brandy, yes.
Like you can make a change and it not be due to a failure. Maybe you just changed your mind and that is allowed even after 20 years in a career. Like you can be like, I'm done with this and move on.
You're so right. I think so much is wrapped up in, if someone makes a change, they obviously failed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if I just wanted more for myself? What if I became
different?
Or what if I became feral and I was just like shedding everything that didn't serve me and became truly my most unique individual true self and said, I'm going to go after what I really want and what means something.
And it's weird. Like most people I've noticed when they are making these changes, we were just referencing a hustle culture on social media. Most people are de-hustling. They are going to something without as much hustle because it's exhausting.
Yes. I'm hesitant to even say this, but going to farming is not a de-hustle. It's a different hustle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this sort of move to
that's what I'm saying.
agriculture and agrarian kind of cosplay is
that's a whole episode.
I know, and we're gonna get there.
That's not this episode.
That's not this episode. But I would say that sometimes I think we're making a lateral shift instead of a down shift.
Yes. And even if somebody is like de-hustling and wants a quieter life, that's still, there's no shame, there's no failure. You just realize you don't want to do that for another 20 years.
Okay, so it's so funny you say this. When we closed our Buckhead location, right, it was really successful. It was a great store. We were making good money. Everything was awesome when we closed it. And my very close friends and family, when we closed that store, were like, encouraging me, this is the right thing. We know you. We know what you're going to do, and you're going to kill yourself. Mm-hmm. Because when the manager left there, then it became the onus was on me to run it day to day or figure out how to fill that void.
And you were in the middle of like an employment crisis that was nationwide.
Well, but also I just had my third baby, you know, and I had spent so much time away from my kids, which I've said here a couple times. Long story short, the people closest to me were like, shut that shit down before it kills you. And all the other people on the periphery that I knew who are entrepreneurs specifically, they're like, wait, you're running a successful business. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you don't get what figure it out looks like for my family, for my soul. A lot of people assumed it was because it was failing.
Yeah. Oh,
industry people were like, oh yeah, what a bad time to open. And I was like, no, it was actually a really successful business. Like the automatic assumption was that business failed, so I closed it. No, it was probably the crazy thing is like, it's like walking away from the table with all your chips. It was probably the most successful it was gonna be when I closed it, and I walked away with all my chips.
Hey, I have always been a fan of knowing when to leave a situation. Because there's just no point. Like that is kudos to you. You left at the top because your gut said, this is done. Like we can't sustain this.
But it was fucking brutal. Like I can't even describe to you. Like I still want to cry talk how I felt. It was brutal because I felt like I was failing myself, but I knew it was I had to do it. For my family, for my soul, but like the undoing of that thing that I was so proud of that was successful was brutal. Like it was months of depression. I lost 18 pounds. I had, like, not to be TMI, every morning I woke up, my stomach was in knots. I would get sick every single morning for like months. It was brutal. I was so wrapped up in this stuff. And undoing that wrapping allowed me in so many other ways to start experiencing joy in my life. But I had to go through this like kind of disassociating with the ego.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think you were like, because you didn't want people to think you failed? Why do you think it?
I think I'm not proud to admit it. It sucks to admit. And I think that's some of the emotion coming up. I hate myself for caring about what other people think. But I also, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares about my reputation? Who cares about what people in the industry say? It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my day to day. It doesn't affect my joy.
Affect your business really, because you're going to be successful.
But I had to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like a lot of it was wrapped up in feeling like I was letting people down. I had built up these regulars there. To this day, I mean, I still feel like people are like, God, I was at Market. We just miss Buckhead so much. All of us at the showroom shopped there. And I'm just like, oh, it feels like a stab to the heart. I think that's probably more than the ego part of it, feeling like I was letting people down now that I'm talking through it. Mm-hmm. I felt like I don't know.
I didn't have those same feelings when I made a change, but I was surprised at how I knew I wanted to make a change. And then I still mourned and like had grief over changing my lifestyle, because it is an adjustment. Like, so I went from, literally hustling all day long, juggling the work, the kids, all the things, to kind of cutting all of that off. And I was just almost a stay-at-home mom. And it took a lot of adjusting to get used to a new normal, which is what I wanted. The new normal is what I wanted. But there was a grieving period, I feel like, and I didn't expect that to come. Like, I didn't expect that to happen.
What were you grieving? The change?
Like every now and then you would have a few doubts creep in. Like, was this a good decision for my family? Are we going to be okay?
Can I get specific and ask you, were those doubts, because I think this is helpful, did they surround your lifestyle, your finances, your just general anxiety? Like, what were those doubts about?
I think a little of everything. I think everything kind of had a turn.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Just random intrusive thoughts would come in, and I'd be like, nope, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. And be just work through it, because I don't really care what other people think. So I didn't have that part.
No, I mean, I think you're lucky. And again, like, I'm not proud of caring what people think, but I do. And
many people do. I think that's more normal.
And also, my business being that like direct to, like, I was working directly with my customers and I got to know them really well. I felt a sincere sense of letting them down, and that's not, but it was either letting them down or letting my family down. Yeah. And my family is first, always and forever. So, it just was a change, but I didn't want to have to make that decision.
Yeah. Oh, it's always and after I made the decision, you probably can't have this with the Buckhead situation, but after I made the decision, it's almost like I saw years worth of the decision coming. Like, once I made the decision and went with it, I can see all the stuff in the past that led up to it much more clearly. Like, I never would have thought that was a sign when I was living those situations. But after the fact, I was like, this was just a natural trajectory.
I think often when we make a big change or shift, the hindsight of it all becomes crystal clear.
Yeah.
Where the picture previously is out of focus because you're not sure what you want to do and everything seems a bit hazy. Is this decision what I really want or need? And you're kind of weighing it all. And then once you make the choice, you do the thing, suddenly everything like snaps into focus.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, that was all there all along, but maybe I wasn't weighing it in.
And if you think about it, how weird is it that we choose this job like in our 20s when you're a baby? And I know that sounds weird, and I hate hearing that. Even now, like, if a 60-year-old tells me I'm a baby at 40 and then you're still doing that. I mean, I think it's very rare that you're the same person in your 20s that you are in your 40s. So why not change jobs? You're a different person.
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people avoid these changes for a lot of reasons. And I think talking about that could be important to helping somebody out there who's trying to weigh it. I think fear is a powerful motivator. And listen, there are a lot of people who, I would say most everyone, us included, if we make a big change, there's a big financial impact or fear. Like, what if the next thing doesn't come along and then suddenly I am in a pickle with my finances?
Yeah.
I think that security often keeps us locked in.
Oh, 100%.
It's like, okay, well, what I know, the devil you know, is better than the devil you don't know.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I know my paycheck is steady. I know that's coming in. And I think that often keeps us locked in.
Oh, for sure.
Where also sometimes when you pull the rug out and like the necessity becomes there, like you will figure it out.
And there's a term for that. It's actually called the golden handcuffs. And it's like, because if you do have a steady paycheck in what you're doing, but you don't like it, it's like handcuffing you in because you know financially you're fine, but emotionally, socially, whatever, you might not be fine with it. So you have to make that decision. And that's not an easy decision or something to take lightly.
Well, and as we were talking about this, I was also thinking like sometimes I was thinking about like the reasons people don't do things. It's like the paperwork of it all. It takes a lot of like literal paperwork or physical and mental work to do change.
Well, and then you see people and you forget your life is totally different from what they think your life is. Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. And it's like, you're already overwhelmed. And then it's like, oh, now I'm going to add all this crap to my plate.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't sound fun. That doesn't sound freeing. That sounds like a lot more work. And I think that's part of it too. And I don't want to add to my plate. Summer may be on its way out, but we know of a little slice of summer that you can enjoy all year long. Today's episode sponsor, Playa Bowls. What began as a pair of blenders, a patio table, and a fridge has flourished into over 200 stores, thousands of employees, and a mission to inspire and support communities in healthy, sustainable living, one delicious bowl at a time. Using the freshest, highest quality ingredients, they serve healthy, delicious acai, pitaya, coconut bowls, smoothies, juices, and cold brews with sustainability and community in mind. Born on the beach and built for the globe, they're your morning booster and your lunch break dream, your post-surf fix and perfect nightcap. Don't even get us started on the Nutella Bowl, which we're craving 24/7. Go see them in Athens in the Beechwood Shopping Center on Alps Road. You can enjoy the store or order online for pickup, and they even offer catering services. Find them online at playabowls.com and give our local Athens Playa Bowls a follow on Instagram at playabowlsath.
I think it's worth saying that this is not by any means an easy decision or a decision you can really depend on anyone else to make. I think you have to be very introspective and really only look out for you and the immediate people you are responsible for.
That's right.
You can talk to your friends, but they're not in your shoes. They're not, and there's no course. Don't even attempt to let somebody else work you through this process. Like, it is deeply personal. You've got to do that. I mean, there are some things that might guide and help you with your thoughts, but they need to be your thoughts.
Was Emily P. Freeman, those questions?
Yeah. So, and we've talked about her before.
Right.
Emily P. Freeman.
I updated. I put the 10 questions down. Is that
I took them off. I thought I left them.
Oh,
sorry.
Son of a gun.
We'll link to them. It's too many to, I have 3 right here. It's too many. 10 was too many. We'll link to them.
I added them in because I was like, as a listener, I would want to hear all 10.
Oh, well, I'll give you 3. Okay. So Emily P. Freeman, we've talked about her before. She has 2 books that I know of. She might have more. Her latest is called How to Walk Into a Room. And she changed it How to Walk Into a Room because she didn't want the book to have a negative title, but it's more about how to leave a room. And I've heard her say that because she has a podcast as well. That's really wonderful. And we will link to all of her stuff. But she has a lot of questions for leaving and staying in the book. And there are 10 specifically for each. And this is what I'm talking about. You can't have a course. Like, no one can work you through this. But there are questions that can help guide
you workshop it out.
Yeah. And like organize your own thoughts.
Right.
So a few of them that I thought were applicable specifically to midlife were: what bothers me the most? What do I need more of? And who can I ask for help? Because when I say no one else can make this decision for you, I'm not saying you cannot talk to anyone else about this. But don't talk to your jealous friend. Don't talk to your friend. I want to say that's in their own midlife crisis, but that could be good and bad. But they have to be stable enough to be able to listen and not just project on you.
It's how we jumped this episode off.
How?
Not everybody wants you to change.
Yeah. So you've got to be selective.
If someone's like, I love when you're stressed because you love to meet me for margaritas and queso all the time, and I don't want my life to change. So I want to see you stressed because you come,
And I will say specifically, when my husband and I left our jobs, which we had kind of conjoint midlife crisis, it was a very unique situation. People that we thought would be more supportive and helpful, nowhere to be found.
Your most supportive friends are going to be like, let's go get a margarita and queso.
Yeah.
And let's let me help you workshop this thing
Like
out.
people we thought that would really be like helping us find a new job. They didn't offer any.
That does not shock me one bit. That does not surprise me one bit. It's so funny. It's kind of like with the podcast too. We were talking about, I think it was on Patreon. We were talking about how sometimes it surprises us who listens and who doesn't.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. And not that everybody needs, but sometimes it's interesting who shows up at your door when times get tough and who jumps ship.
Yeah.
And you start to realize the older you get that it doesn't surprise you.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh, I thought I could call on you for help and you're not answering the phone.
No. Or that you just thought somebody would be more into helping you. Like this is an important thing about a midlife crisis too. When you start telling people everybody's for it and they're all like giving you their ideas. And then when you call on them to follow through the help, no.
They don't answer the phone.
No. They're like, nah, I didn't really mean it when I said.
Like, oh yeah, remember how I said I'd help you find a job? That's not true.
No, I'm not down for that.
I think also sometimes blowing up your life isn't an explosion per se. Sometimes it's smaller things. Like you just start to do away and suddenly like leaving the room becomes easier because you're sort of you're figuring out the tools you need to get through that door.
I think sometimes it can like trickle. You know,
it doesn't need to be, I quit, I walk out, I whatever. It can be a slower burn.
And that's why I like that question, what bothers me the most? Because you can be bothered by something at your work and, try to make some tweaks with yourself to see if it might get better. And that's why I say the trickle. So you try these things, they're not working. So then you go to a bigger thing and then you quit the job.
Right.
It's a process. It's definitely a process.
And also, I think something that's important to add is like, some people do this without a safety net out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like, I really am going to break down if I don't.
Yeah.
And some people do it for other reasons. But I think if you can, and necessity is not a factor playing into things, if you can, maybe work on a safety net so it's not so scary, so that you're jumping out of the plane and there is maybe a baby parachute in place so you're not so fearful, because that fear can be crushing too, and like in a different way.
The fear is real.
And yes, you can speak to that. And when you are going through a big change and there is a lot of fear and there is no safety net, I think,
Yeah.
And a safety net can be anything. It can be something else lined up. It can be a group of friends that you do trust, and family that can be trusted advisors that are going to pick up the phone, that aren't going to ghost you when the time comes, and making sure that that's all lined up.
And I will say specifically a safety net is finances. And we had actually talked to our accountant, and he was like, you need 3 months of savings if you're going to quit your job. And I was like, 3 months? That is not enough.
Right.
Like that. And I'm like, you're my trusted accountant, and that is not enough. And I would say that is true. I don't think 3 months is enough.
We've heard that a lot in business, and we've always built in more because we had a roof collapse. Let me tell you, 3 months ain't enough.
No, I was
when we had
shocked.
no income, 3 months was not enough.
Because it takes, if you don't already have, maybe if you have another job lined up and you're going from A to B, I think 3 months might be. But we went into a career where money did not instantly come in, and 3 months was not acceptable.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, those are all things, and the fear of that is legit. So. Personally,
well, especially when you have so much more to lose, when you have children and a mortgage. I'm not saying you have less to lose if you don't have children, but worrying about your grocery bill is scary.
With groceries these days, yes. Groceries are like a mortgage.
Like, we can eat tuna fish, but like my children are growing.
So yeah, it's a lot to think about. But for us personally, we had to have a lot of faith going into this, that yes, we were making the right decision. We had a lot of peace with our decision. So even though we didn't have all of the questions answered and all of the money everywhere it needed to be, we felt like we were making the right decision, and that would be honored in the process at some point.
I think you really said a mouthful when you said peace. Like, one word says it all. And I can say similarly, like when I closed that location, I had a lot of peace with it.
Yeah.
Like, I was upset about it. It was hard. It was hurtful. It was painful. But I was at peace. Like, I knew the night that, actually probably within hours of like this sort of being forced to make this decision, that I knew what the right one was. I was very at peace with that. I was like, okay, the alternate isn't even a question. So like, I know what I need to do in my heart. And I think that when you're talking about blowing up your life, when you're talking about making a big decision, I think that's part of it. Like, do you feel, when you think about it, are you at peace? Like, what does that mean in your soul? And I think that is something that a lot of people don't talk about or don't value, that is wildly important.
Yeah. I think the peace matters invaluably, but also I had a lot of peace. You had a lot of peace. That does not mean we did not struggle with the decision after the fact and have grief and heartache. Those are natural processes to any change, any loss. And I'm not saying loss in a bad way, but we are leaving something behind. So it is a loss.
Sure.
That even though you have peace, there are going to be days you're sad about it, days you're mad about it.
Yes.
And you can't turn your back on your decision and your peace just because these more negative feelings show up one day. Like, that's part of the process. And
exactly
they get less and less and less.
Yes. Just like anything else, any other kind of breakup.
Yeah, exactly.
It is, you're exactly right. You mourn it. It's emotional. It's difficult, but at the end of the day, you lay your head down and you sleep well because you're at peace with the decision.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about it, what do we want to name this thing? I still don't know. Feral 40s is pretty much winning.
I like feral 40s. I like that a lot.
So it doesn't have to be your 40s. I hate that it has 40s. Feral female.
Feral female. Feral. I don't know. We'll come
just
up with
feral.
Something.
When you go feral.
Just you go feral.
She did feral.
And if you've blown up your life, let us know what that looked like. We love to hear. We get messages. And it's funny because now that we have so many episodes. What are we, like 23?
24. I don't know what this is going to end up as.
I mean, we have 24 episodes. So I'll have friends that are listening out of order or started late, or, I was in the nail salon and everyone was talking about, not everyone, 2 people were talking about the podcast. But we were chatting about it. But it's really interesting because you'll get feedback on episodes. You're like, oh my gosh, I kind of forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're moved on so much.
And someone's like, wow, bikini really resonated with me or whatever. And it's really, we love to hear those stories, even if they're well after the fact. So thank you for listening. Yeah. And please go, if you can take some time today and go review us.
We would love it.
That would be wonderful. It's so helpful. All of it helps us to bring you more and more of this content. So Please rate, review, like, subscribe.
We're here for you in your midlife feral thing.
Or your non-midlife feral thing.
Yeah.
We just like feral people, to be honest.
I know, we do. Feral. Maybe we should rename them. She did feral.
She did feral. We love feral people. So if you are feral, you belong at this table.
Friend us.
Friend us. We are here for you. We are your people.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks
Bye,
for
y'all.
listening.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and can't wait to share another episode with you next Thursday.
Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To keep up with the latest, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Podcast She Did What. We'll be sharing updates, behind the scenes, and announcements you won't want to miss.
And if there's anything you'd like to share with us, whether it be a personal story or feedback on our episodes, you can leave us a voicemail at 762-499-2201 or head over to our website, shedidwhatpodcast.com. Also, feel free to leave us a review down below. We'd love to know what you think.
She Did What is hosted by us, Brandy Chandler and Katie Jacobs, and produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday. And remember, it isn't always easy, but it sure as hell can be entertaining.